All right, it looks like we are live. Let me get my screen control thing here. Got it. All right. Got about a half hour today. Do a little live stream here. I want to talk about upcoming Star Wars projects, and even more specifically, a little bit about who we might see in them. Got this article. Saw this yesterday. I just skimmed through it. I actually haven't read it very carefully. We'll look at it together. The short article on the direct. I'll put a link to it in the show notes there. But yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi is coming up. Should be a surprise to no one. It's probably one of the, if not the most anticipated show coming out for Star Wars on Disney Plus. As much as Boba Fett is kind of a fan favorite character, Obi-Wan is probably everyone's, front runner for next best Disney show, or most anticipated anyway. And yeah, Deborah Chow directing. For Star Wars fans, kind of Mandalorian fame. And this is interesting information here. So, directed by the Mandalorian's Deborah Chow, the upcoming Star Wars series will showcase the return of Ewan McGregor, so prequel trilogy actor playing Obi-Wan. It will be set 10 years after the devastating events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. So 10 years, that's important to know that time frame. Because essentially what we have is the entirety of Luke's life on Tatooine that the show could be set in. So it's important to know that it's going to be 10 years into that time period. Not only because it lets us know how old Obi-Wan is, how old Luke is, how those interactions may play out if they show up at all. And I think it'd be a little weird to have Obi-Wan on Tatooine and not at least take a peek at Luke. I really hope it doesn't become a Skywalker story. Skywalkers have got plenty of screen time in Star Wars, and I think in the Disney era anyway, where they are shining with their storytelling is in non-Skywalker stuff. Anyway, we said 10 years after the devastating events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, so that's important. And then casting. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is casting. Everybody's going crazy with casting. Who's going to show up? Who's going to show up? Not only in this show, but in all of them. And this happens with Marvel too. It happens with other franchises. But I think just because Star Wars has been around for so long, and there are a lot of characters, and people want to be excited, right? We want to be hyped. It's one thing to talk about is casting. Who's going to show up? But yeah, McGregor will be joined by a stellar cast that includes, I'm not going to read through all their names, but Hayden Christensen set to reprise his role as Darth Vader. That's one that everybody's really been looking forward to. There's some lines in Star Wars A New Hope, specifically, the when last we met, you were the master, that line. So how they're going to play that. But we know Hayden Christensen is going to be there. We know he's going to be Vader. Production is wrapped. So we know that, but who else is going to show up? I guess we'll see. Production is wrapped for the Star Wars series, but its release date is still a closely guarded secret. Could premiere. All right, so the direct's just guessing here. Could premiere in May 2022. I think it's probably reasonable to expect, May 4th. I mean, it could be, it would be a good reveal to do it on May the 4th. We'll see. Let's just read this. A potential Star Wars Day premiere. In a way, this rumor makes sense, especially considering the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi has already wrapped filming. It's also fitting that the Ewan McGregor-led project would premiere in May, since fans are well aware that it's a month that celebrates Star Wars Day. Whatever. There's a lot they could release there. Maybe stuff that might want the May the 4th bump a little more than Kenobi. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi show is going to pull in a lot of viewers. whenever they release it. So they could try to take advantage of May the 4th for, next season of Bad Batch. Who knows? So in 2022, Star Wars Day falls on a Wednesday. Oh, that actually is interesting because Disney Plus figured out that with their Marvel releases, that releasing on Wednesday was better for them than releasing on Friday. I don't know if we'll ever see inside information on their viewership numbers, but they made that blanket change. I remember reading something about all the forthcoming Marvel stuff on Disney Plus is going to release on a Wednesday. Might be a little weird to overlap the Star Wars and Marvel releases, and Wednesday just could get a little crowded, but I guess we'll see. But it's cool that May the 4th falls on a Wednesday. If they are doing regular Wednesday releases, good for Disney. That worked out well for them logistically. In 2022, Star Wars Day falls on Wednesday, meaning that there's a strong chance that Obi-Wan Kenobi might be released on that specific day. This would be in line with their previous plans for Star Wars Day 2022 when the Bad Batch premiered. Okay, it's poised to be a big year. Yeah, we know that. There's so much stuff they could release. Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, they even talk about it here, even though it's showing and they're just squeezing it in to December. And I think the reason they're doing that is this. Quarterly reports for a company like Disney are monstrously important. You would hope as a fan that creative decisions would drive everything. But this is a for-profit venture. They're going to make decisions driven by profit for the company and return for the shareholders. And releasing Book of Boba Fett in December, if they're going to see a spike in Disney Plus memberships, they would rather see that spike in December, even if it's the tail end of December. So that shows up in their Q4 earnings report. They can talk about their overall Disney Plus subscription numbers, and since if there's a spike in viewership, that probably will also, you would guess, it would include a spike in domestic in US Disney Plus memberships. Those are high dollar compared to some of the overseas memberships. So they'd see that return per user go up. So yeah, even though Book of Boba Fett is releasing in December, most of it, so 5 of the 6 episodes are actually going to be showing in 2022. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year, and maybe Obi-Wan will come out in May. But there's 2 articles that came out. There was this one, and then I'm going to hop over to this guy. There's this article that came out on Go Away Video on We Got This Covered. And there's not a lot to this article. You can read through it if you want. I linked it in the description. But it's basically an actor from the animated series Rebels was rumored to have been seen on set, recording for one of the live action shows. Production's underway for The Mandalorian's 3rd season. I think by this they mean not Boba Fett specifically. It's The Mandalorian season that's anticipated to come kind of at the end of 2022, maybe even 2023, depending on how they do it. I talk about Pedro Pascal working on The Last of Us and maybe being unavailable for Mandalorian, but since they mostly just need his voice. Oh, this is a tip from Star Wars Meg. She has a great channel. I don't always watch her stuff. Mostly, she's great. She's a real hype-driven channel, but kind of like Charlie with Emergency Awesome. I think she does it pretty well. But I don't watch all of her stuff because it gets pretty rumory and pretty spoilery. And I think just as a fan, I kind of want to be surprised a little bit. But yeah, this is a tip from her. Go check out Star Wars Meg if you hadn't. She's awesome. But yeah, Kevin Kidd, and he plays one of the Mandalorian characters, Finn Rao. It's a cool character in the Rebels animated show. Most of the Mandalorians are pretty badass, but Finn Rao's got a cool line. Interesting character path for him as a Mandalorian, because that society's kind of gone through a lot. But yeah, he's rumored to be seen on set. So Anyway, he's been rumored to see on set, and then of course we have people like Bo-Katan, Katie Sackhoff, who's an amazing animated voice actor who just can in person make the jump to live action. She's awesome and stuff. But right next to her, Ahsoka Tano. As much as I love Ashley Eckstein, I got some stuff autographed by her, first edition comics, things like that. Love Ashley Eckstein. They went with Rosario Dawson for live action, who I think did a wonderful job as Ahsoka in The Mandalorian. I was nervous about that. Ahsoka is hands down my favorite Star Wars character. It's not even close, and I want to see her done with respect to her character, to her story, to everything that's happened with her. And I think Rosario Dawson did a great job. But that's a animated actor who didn't make the jump to live action, was replaced. So there's a question when we see like so-and-so was on set and they're the voice actor for this. Maybe they're just doing a voiceover. Maybe they're just saying hi to people they've worked with in the past. Doesn't necessarily mean that actor is playing that character in the show. And in fact, more often than not, maybe they won't. Which brings me to the character I wanted to talk about today, and that's Hera Syndulla. One of my favorite characters. I love Rebels. We got Hera right here. Yay, there she is. Hera Syndulla. If you've never watched Rebels, if you're not into animated stuff at all, like, give it a shot. You might be impressed. If you're a fan of the Clone Wars and you didn't watch Rebels just because, I don't know, it was on Disney XD for the first season and it's more for kids or something like that, you might want to give it a shot. I will say that the first season was a little bit rocky. And I think part of that was because they were really constrained by the age requirements of the audience for that service. But season 2, they got their feet, and season 3 and season 4 are fantastic Star Wars. I don't know if it well, it doesn't beat Clone Wars, especially Clone Wars seasons like 5, 6, and 7 for me. But it might rival Mandalorian. Like, Mandalorian was cool. It was like the first live action Star Wars we got, episodic Star Wars we got, and it was really well done. I think Rebels might be better, or not better. It may hold a fonder place in my heart. But at any rate, give Star Wars Rebels a chance if you haven't. Let me share this. Hera Syndulla. So we've seen her all over the place. So people are talking about Obi-Wan, and this character could be there, and that character be there, and there's enough characters that have been discussed that might show up in that show that we wouldn't have any room for plot, right? It's I don't know how many episodes that show is set to have, whether it's 6 or 10 or whatever. As many people are rumored to cameo in that thing, it would just be this steady stream of nostalgia baiting cameos and no real story to tell. And I don't think they're going to do that with Obi-Wan. And as much as we've seen Hera sneaking around in projects recently, I don't think she would show up in Obi-Wan. But I do think, I think 2 things. One, I think people are anticipating more cameos in Obi-Wan than we will actually get. And which means that most of those anticipations won't be met. Those kind of speculations are wrong. I also think that Hera is one of the animated characters, kind of non-mainline Skywalker saga characters to show up. But I don't think it'll be in Obi-Wan. I think it'll be in... more than likely, I think it'll be in Andor. But she could make a cameo in Obi-Wan to set herself up for a larger role in Andor. And I'm going to go over a couple reasons why I think that's the case. First, a little bit about Hera. She's a Twi'lek. We've seen her in a variety of other things. Just here she is with Ahsoka. Ahsoka was so good in Rebels. She's the pilot of the Ghost. Oh man, I have a cool Ghost figure of the ship. Um, if you take the comics as canon, the Ghost is famous in that Han Solo once claimed it was the better ship um, than the Millennium Falcon. Says it's the best ship in the galaxy. A little tongue in cheek, since he was kind of being coerced into saying that, but he did say it. So yeah, the Ghost is it's a cool ship. It's crewed by a cast. These characters up here behind me, um, and you can think about it as like almost a Star Wars version of Firefly, right? It's this kind of tight knit crew, more akin to a family, and definitely toward the end of the series, um, almost overtly a family living on board the ship. And the ship is um, maybe not as much a part of the crew as a droid is in Star Wars universe, but it's their home. It's got a character all its own, and the crew of the Ghost, not on the Ghost, is kind of them not at their best. But yeah, so Hera is the pilot, and she's a fantastic pilot. We're going to talk a little bit about why she's such a cool character. But a little sneak peek is she's she's earned it. Um, so she's the pilot, and she's also fills the role kind of mother to the crew. Um, and Disney as a company doesn't really do traditional mother characters. In fact, I kind of challenge you to find one. This may be the closest thing. Hera, be specific, may be the closest thing we have in Star Wars to an actual mother figure. People might point to Leia's interaction with Rey. We never really got to see Leia be a mother to Ben Solo in the sequel trilogy, but the list of things we didn't get to see or that were done poorly in the sequel trilogy is quite long. Leia being a mother figure probably doesn't even break the first couple of pages. But Hera is maybe maybe the closest thing we can get to a traditional mother figure in Star Wars, and it is done in a really badass way. You can think of her, like I made the analogy that the Ghost is kind of like Serenity and Firefly. Hera is kind of a blend between Wash um, and Shepherd Book in Firefly. She is often the voice of reason or compassion in a crew of predominantly militant rebels. Right? She's the glue that holds them all together. And it's done in a really, really thoughtful, considered way. It doesn't pander to that side of her. It doesn't exaggerate it to a point where she's a caricature of that. It's really developed over time, like they've invested in her decisions and in her actions to make her fill that role. Pull up some more images there. She's awesome. There she is with Sabine, kind of her surrogate, unruly daughter. So yeah, she kind of fills that role in the crew. But like I was saying, she's earned what she has. She's I think I'd probably find pictures of it. She is hands down, there she is upside down, one of the best pilots in the galaxy. And I think there's a lot of legit criticism to throw at Star Wars for saying people are just the best ever at this or that, or they're so amazing. And it's because of the Force, or in the sequel trilogies, it's like, it's just because we told you. You got to believe it that's true. Hera's come by it the hard way through time, effort, and mistakes, right? And learning from them. There's even this line from Thrawn. I think it's in the final season. There's a line from Thrawn about Hera, He's captured her. Yeah, it is. It's actually in the final arc of the whole series, where Thrawn has captured her, and he is revealing. Thrawn's a cool character because he's such a student of the people he's trying to conquer that he can really reveal a lot about them, and it's not in a good way. He's learning these things so he can exploit them, so he can use them to conquer and to dominate, individuals and entire races and planets. Thrawn's a scary, scary bad guy. But when he's speaking specifically to Hera, the quote is something like, I am a student of war. I've studied it and I work to perfect it. But you were forged by it. And she was. We see as early as Clone Wars, season 1 or season 2, whenever the clones first go to Ryloth, the Twi'lek homeworld, we see Hera there. She's living in a cave with a bunch of freedom fighters. Say that 10 times fast. She's living in a cave with a bunch of freedom fighters, and that's her life as a very young child. And we've seen more of that just recently with the Bad Batch. One of the cooler segments, actually, it was really awesome to see. I enjoyed the Bad Batch, especially for, and I'll get back to Hera in a second. When you look at the animated Star Wars shows, at least kind of the big mainstream ones. I know there's been like the droids and the Ewoks and stuff, but look at the clone and the original Samurai Jack guy that did the Clone Wars ones, which were awesome. But if you look at Rebels, Clone Wars, obviously, and what's the new one, Resistance or whatever? That's terrible. They start off a little rough, right? Clone Wars becomes amazing. Rebels becomes really, really good. I would say amazing. Like, I would watch the entirety of Rebels again before I watched a lot of other stuff that I've liked. Like, it's good enough that it has rewatch value, and its emotional beats hit pretty hard. And then you got Resistance. It's just unwatchably bad. I don't know what the deal was with that. It was terrible. It's the only Star Wars thing I think that I legitimately could not finish. I was unable to ingest the entirety of that show. It was bad. But anyway, those animated shows tend to start a little bit slow. And I think, to Bad Batch's credit, didn't start as slow as most. Definitely had some episodes that were a little more fillery. But most shows have that. And honestly, I don't mind it when things are so laser focused on the overarching story. I think this is one of Marvel's problems right now. It can't get out of its own way to have some good character moments and some good world building moments, and just live in that environment, show off those characters. So to Bad Batch's credit, I think it started stronger than most of Disney's animated efforts, and has the potential to get every bit as good. But one of the cooler things in that first season, I think, was the 2-episode arc that had Hera in it. Hera as a young child, kind of a contemporary of Omega, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But we see her again in her very formative years. She's probably 10, 11, 12 years old, maybe, in those episodes. And she's already entrenched in, I don't call it a rebellion, but kind of an insurgent group who's fighting the occupation of Ryloth at that point. She's already been through a full war, the culmination of the Clone Wars, which had dramatic impacts on Ryloth and her family and her life, and then occupation by the Empire. She has spent her entire life, and not in a passive way, in an active way, interacting with these conflicts and occupations, and we get to see that, and we get to see her learning and struggling as a fledgling pilot. So when we get to Rebels, and then her cameos in Rogue One, just a voice line, but it's kind of cool to hear her mentioned. And then she even shows up in the Star Wars games. Pulled her up in Squadrons just because. See if I can make this bigger. Good content here. Oh, I've pulled up the whole article, but yeah, I mean, there she is. There's Hera. But we see her in these properties. She has earned her stripes, right? She has spent a lifetime honing these skills. And compare that to some of the other characters that we have been told to like in the Star Wars universe, and some of the projects they've had that haven't done as well. It just doesn't ring true. And you're like, oh, okay. I guess we're supposed to like this character. It's the Captain Marvel version of Star Wars. If we're told that they're amazing enough times, maybe we'll start believing it. I don't have to do that with Hera, because if you follow just even a passing observation of all the Star Wars storytelling that's going on, you don't even have to read through the comics, which she plays a significant role in, and she's been in novels. The story of her and Kanan meeting in the extended universe, good read. Actually, all the Ryloth books are really good in the Star Wars extended universe. But yeah, you can believe that she's earned her position as not only a competent commander and leader, but incredibly personally accomplished. While she's willing to fight, and she's been trained all her life to do that, she's not ever going to stand toe to toe with a Jedi or a Mandalorian or even a stormtrooper. That is not her. It's not reasonable to expect that of her, right? A big 250-pound combat trained man in his prime is going to take her apart. But that's not the way she fights. That's not the way she leads. She's a fine shot with a blaster, and obviously she's an amazingly accomplished pilot. But she's a leader, and she's earned that through experience. So she's super cool. Obviously, I'm a big Hera fan. But why do I think we could see her? Well, a couple of reasons. One, she's been cropping up everywhere, right? So we could just see more of that. But two, and I think maybe even more importantly, she is the kind of the first female heroine of the Disney era, and quietly one of the best well done, most well done, I should say. As much as I love Ahsoka, and she's my favorite Star Wars character, and plays well with Hera, they have a lot of history together. Hera is a Disney creation, right? And I think I talked about this in a live stream a couple days ago. Disney wants to be using their own characters. They paid a ton of money to get access to Lucasfilm's bank of historical characters, but they want to be using their own, right? They want to make their own toys, their own merch, their own T-shirts with their own characters on it. As much as Ewoks and R2-D2 sold toys in the 80s and 90s, 2000s, and the teens, it's all about Grogu now. And that little green dude sells merch, and he's a Disney creation, and they want more of that. So I think we'll probably see Hera in live action because she's a Disney character well done, and she represents a lot of what Lucasfilm as a company and Disney as a parent company want to push in their properties. In many ways, she's a very different character than Rey, thank goodness, but she's already a lot of what they wanted Rey to be. And as long as they're true to that, to her story and her character, and can write her consistently in that way, they can expect more of that success. And I think they desperately want that. Another reason I think we're going to see her in live action sooner rather than later is that it goes hand in hand with that first point, is we've already seen her form a relationship, and we're told that is formed quickly into a friendship, kind of a kinship with Omega. And just like I mentioned with Hera, Omega is a Disney era creation. I think Omega is their attempt to make the next Ahsoka Tano. Just a runaway fan favorite from the Clone Wars, and they want that again. And Omega has many of the same. No, not many. Shares some similarities with Ahsoka. Ahsoka was pretty brash and overconfident when she debuted to kind of the disgruntlement of fans, who soon came around and she became beloved. But Omega is not portrayed out of the gates as this absolute over the top success that everyone loves and follows and adores. There's some of that going on. But they've written her such that they try to make her earn that, and I trust the team doing that show to pull that off. I think we're going to get Omega as a pivotal central character to the overarching Star Wars story moving into the future, and I think Hera is an important piece of that. I don't know if we'll have quite the kinship that we had with like Obi-Wan and Anakin with the two of them, but they're already set up to be this kind of inseparable pair. And I'm for it. I love Hera. I like what they're doing with Omega. And, as far as kids they've introduced as stars in Star Wars, they did a pretty good job with Omega. But I mentioned, let's see, I still have this up. So the upcoming Star Wars series will showcase the return of Ewan McGregor and will be set 10 years after the devastating events of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. So I don't think we actually ever get the age of Omega in the Bad Batch. But it's definitely set up that her and Omega and Hera are kind of contemporaries age-wise in that show. And then, minor spoiler for the Bad Batch here, it's also set up that Omega doesn't have the accelerated aging that the other clones have. She's actually older than these, grown men of the Bad Batch, Clone Force 99. She's older than these grown men she's running around with. In fact, she was there to witness their, not really birth, but their creation at the cloning facility. So they're set up to be contemporaries. So if this is 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, and Omega is 10, 11, 12-ish during the Bad Batch, somewhere around there, they're going to be in their late teens, early 20s, which is a great time to get a young actor in to the franchise and take advantage of them in live action, maybe for years to come. So I think she's an awesome character. I think it's likely we'll see her. I think there's reasons to tie her into not only the kind of story creative side of the upcoming shows, but also into, just the financial realities of Disney being a for-profit company. So where will we most likely see her? I'm going to get some more Hera picks up here. I don't think we're going to see nearly as many new characters as people are speculating for the Obi-Wan series. I think if we're going to get, obviously we're going to have more characters than just Fennec, Shand, and Boba Fett in the Boba Fett series. That's, I think, 6 episodes. Yeah, 6 episodes. 1 in January, or 1 in December, and then 5 in early 2022. I think that's more likely to set up Kira and Maul and the underworld stuff than it is to set up a bunch of Rebels stuff. Who knows what they'll do with Book of Boba Fett. And they still have all the Mandalore ties that they ought to respect, to provide some continuity for the normies, like, people like my wife who love The Mandalorian but knows nothing about the extended Star Wars universe. If you threw an entire different slate of characters, she'd just be wondering, where's all those people that we were already introduced to? Yeah, some are dead. Some have fallen victim to real world stuff, like like Gina Carano and the her character Cara Dune. So obviously we won't get them back. But I think just like 180ing and like, oh yeah, we're not going to see Bo-Katan or anyone with Mandalore. We're going to see, we're not going to see anything with Ahsoka or Grogu or Luke. We're going to go a whole different direction. That may be a lot for normies to swallow. Anyway, so I don't think we're going to see her in Boba Fett. Again, maybe just a cameo to set up something later toward the end of the season. I don't think we're going to see her in Obi-Wan. Maybe a little bit more likely there, but still probably not. And if so, again, probably just something toward the end to cue her up for where I think we will see her, and that is in Andor. We know Cassie, and I did a live stream on this a few days ago. Cassian Andor is some people view him as the throwaway character because we know how his story ends because of Rogue One. That's the show I'm even more so than Obi-Wan. That's the show I'm most looking forward to and really hope they do well, because just a quick summary of what I talked about there, they can really do anything with him. They're not tied to, well, they're tied to how his story ends, but he alludes to a lifetime of adventure essentially with the rebellion. He became involved in that effort, much like Hera Syndulla when he was just a child, when he was 6. So Hera at the time, so she's a general in the rebellion during the events of Rogue One, so leading up to the destruction of the first Death Star. And so she has to be, and that's of course well after all the events of Rebels. The Spectres and the Ghost crew were kind of like, I'd have to look this up. Let's see. When the Star Wars Rebels set. Okay, so 1 BBY, 5 BBY. So 5 years after the Battle of Yavin. Sorry, before. That's interesting. So she's not as old as I thought she would be during Rogue One. Which makes for some interesting possibilities. It definitely means that the actress, Vanessa Marshall, voiced the character in Rebels. And I think in the game, I think it was the same voice for the Star Wars Squadrons game, where she has a pretty big role in the cutscenes of that. She's my age, so she's probably too old to make the jump to live action. So I think they would definitely need to get a younger actor to play the character in live action. Maybe not though. Rosario Dawson is not a super young woman, and they cast her for Ahsoka, a character I would imagine they would like to get years and years of use with, because she's so beloved by everyone who's ever seen her. But yeah, so there is, I think we have a chance to maybe see Hera kind of as the mentor role, or the general assigning Andor, Cassian rather, assignments in the Andor show. And I'd be there for it, right? If we actually get to see her spend some time in the cockpit of the Ghost, or maybe the B-Wing prototype that she flew in Rebels, I'd be there for that too. I'd take as much of her as they wanted to ship. It's probably still going to be like a Cassian-centric show, since he's the the titular character of it. But they've put female leads in roles of a lot of the Disney Plus stuff above and beyond their male counterparts. So they might do that too. I don't know if I can say a lot. I'm specifically thinking about Loki, where Loki was kind of just along for the ride in his show, in his own show. But at any rate, yeah, I think she's an amazing character. I think she's a Disney specific property. They want to see those succeed. And I think story wise, she fits in well and ties in to a lot of new Disney while respecting and having ties to some of the old Disney, the stuff that or sorry, Star Wars, the stuff that Disney bought of Star Wars. So she's both financially, structurally, and story-wise poised to do very well. I think her and Omega's relationship is very important. Her and Ahsoka's relationship is very important. If we see, and probably when we see Sabine and Ezra introduced into live action, that's going to be a huge part of Bo-Katan and Mandalore's story. Hera makes perfect sense there. They only have room for so many characters, right? And they've made big investments in Hera. I think it's foolish to think that we won't see those paid off in live action. Yeah, so that's some of my thoughts on that. So anyway, I've been going for about almost 45 minutes here. I'm going to wrap it up and go do a few more things with my day. But yeah, I just wanted to react a little bit to the kind of speculation about release dates for Obi-Wan. Super excited for that show. It maybe even more so than Book of Boba Fett, but not quite as much as I am for Andor. But I'm excited for all the live action Disney stuff. 2022 is set to be a huge year for that. I can go over my list of like Hot Toys pre-orders and statue pre-orders for Star Wars stuff, and it's not gentle on the wallet, but it's really cool to see that much excitement and that much movement and action in what's for me my favorite galaxy and fandom. So yeah, leave a like if you're into this kind of thing. If you stuck around this long, there's probably something you liked in it. So give me a like or subscribe. I'll do more live streams. Sure, I am soon. We'll just see what comes across the news and catches my interest. Till then, later.